Chapter 61 of Kagurabachi follows on from the reveal of Chapter 61, showing us Samura's daughter in what feels like a seamless transition between chapters. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that Chapter 61 and 62 feel as if they could be the start of a new volume altogether. But with that all being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's just talk about it.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
As I mentioned before, Chapter 62 follows Iori on her day-to-day life as the daughter of Samura without her knowledge of her being the daughter of Samura. However, that doesn't stop Hokuzono being cheeky and giving us a brief glimpse at what's to come with this chapter. And it's also Iori's character, as we're seeing her have a brief memory of holding someone's hand, and she's not quite sure who it is. But this situation serves to set up a nice little parallel between her and Chihiro here. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because I actually kind of like that parallel that's being set up here. I feel like it's something that Hokuzono is starting to become really adept and mastering at. But it's explained to us that from Iori's perspective that this is her mum and her dad left before she was born, and her mum raised her all by herself. And these are Iori's internal thoughts. However, we the audience know this not to be true based on only what Samura has said, but also his actions and also Iori's brief memories of Samura holding her hand. We know that he was present for her birth and a little bit further into it. But Hokuzono, he goes out of his way in this chapter to really put us in the driver's seat. We're experiencing the world from Iori's perspective here, and it reminded me a lot of Mr. Inazuma, the young kid from the beginning of the Rakuzaichi arc, who, much like Iori, serves as the entryway for Chihiro to come crashing into their lives, basically. Now, to add into all of this, Iori actually sees Chihiro and his actions from the playhouse, as we see this still of Chihiro standing on stage with a terrified bunch of onlookers, only viewing Chihiro as a monster. And this was a plot point that Hokuzono spent a couple of chapters delving into here with Hirohiko and Chihiro and a little while back, and I thought it was something that I personally enjoyed. As I mentioned in that review and in that video, that this clash of ideals, it served to have Hirohiko prove to Chihiro that to the average human, he's no better than him, and he'll always be perceived as a monster, no matter what kind of reason he has for taking the actions he takes. Now, this leads us full circle to an average human looking at Chihiro with utter disgust in her eyes, which made me wonder about how Iori will perceive Chihiro when they finally meet, and furthermore, how she will perceive Samura, a man who's done the same as Chihiro in his killing of people, but something arguably worse from the perspective of a child, and that was to lie to his child, to take away their memories and therefore robbing them of the choice to remember their own parent and make up their own mind about what actions they wanted to take in regards to the choices that Samura had made in his life. Hold on. Before we go any further, I need to tell you about today's sponsor, Manta Mask. Manta Mask have been a friend of this channel now for a while and recently sent me the weighted Manta Mask, which is fantastic for headaches. Some of you know I recently just become a dad. Sleep's heavily important. Sleeping with a light on because my child just doesn't want to sleep in the dark. Sleeping with a light on is kind of important, so having a blackout mask is fantastic. But it's not the only things that they have on there. They have a sound mask, the Mask Pro, which is this one, a silk mask, the classic mask, and then also a large variety of just masks for whatever your sleeping needs. And I personally genuinely sleep with these masks on all the time, like genuinely unironically love these masks, like actual lifesaver. So that being said, use code WEEB at the Manta Mask checkout to save yourself 10% off your order. And once again, massive shout out to Manta Mask for sponsoring today's video. Long-time friends of the channel, appreciate you guys. Anyways, back to the video. I am interested to see how Hokuzono explores all of this. As I mentioned earlier, there is a parallel being drawn between Iori and Chihiro, and both of them are children of former quote-unquote war heroes who have both done heinous things, of which we are yet to find out. As we continue deeper into the chapter, we see Iori meeting with a friend as she explains that it was basically an ordinary morning, except that the violence was on the rise and that 3 days ago a weird thing had blocked out the sky. Now, as I mentioned this in the previous video, but this eye in the sky has been present pretty much every chapter since Samura cast it. Now, Hokuzono is doing this to remind us that it is constantly there, watching and waiting and observing to see what is going on, with it being shown and present to us a lot of this chapter, specifically watching the school Iori attends. Now, Iori continues to explain how when it first appeared there was this big fuss. Now, for 2 days they cancelled school, which is where we see her teacher explaining how the Kamunabi have determined that it isn't dangerous, so classes will resume as normal. Now, this is something that I kind of wanted to look at for a second, because the Kamunabi is They are basically the government, or at least they work for them within this series, and early on it's made very, very clear that sorcery is not hidden from the world, and in fact it seems pretty common to know and hear about sorcerers, which is why the school are so somewhat calm about the sun being literally blocked out by a massive eye in the sky, which is another point that I wanted to talk about here. The sun is literally being blocked out by Samora's abilities, and again, every time we see an ability like this from an enchanted blade, it only makes me wonder just what is the full scope of these blades. What are they actually possible? And it's something that I've been thinking about and theorizing about like the true realm of these blades and what Chihiro was thinking about when his dad talked about this just before he took out all of Sojo's goons in chapters way far back. But anyway, this chapter continues with a discussion between Iori and one of her classmates who's adopted this emo type of vibe due to him having seen the action of Chihiro prior on the TV in the exact same way Iori did, and this is a factor that I kind of enjoyed. Even though Chihiro doesn't consider himself a hero, and he recognizes that killing is bad and it makes him look a monster, and even to some extent he agrees with the point that Hirohiko was making towards him, there are still people out there and in the world that see Chihiro and what he's doing and what he has done and think that's just downright cool, and that's something that I don't think we see a lot of in anime and manga, is the main characters and their actions and their exploits being televised and having a wider general public opinion on weigh in on their actions in this way. The only one that comes to my mind currently is One Piece. That's obviously a big part of One Piece's world and how the Luffy and his crew are perceived is through the news, basically through their actions and how that happens. Chainsaw Man is also one that comes to my mind, but there isn't a whole lot of it that I think sees having this kind of court of public opinion sway on how characters are affected by their actions and how others perceive their actions. However, not everyone sees it the same way as Iori, because once again, she shows her rightful distaste and disgust in Chihiro's actions and points out to her classmate that he is a murderer and that is messed up. But this discussion leads into a more deeper conversation with Iori and her friend about how she couldn't sleep, and she mentions that the reoccurring dreams that she's been had now for the past 3 days. But again, I like how Hokuzono has panelled this segment. The thing Iori is trying to remember is locked away, and due to the chapter being from Iori's perspective, it's also locked away for us too. It's almost just paid DLC that we are not yet ready to access or we're not high enough level. But the classmates note that these dreams have only been going on for the past 3 days. Coincidentally, the eye in the sky has only been around for the past 3 days. To this point, Iori sees the wider picture of what it is that we see in the first page here, and a memory of her and her dad holding hands at this moment, and as we see it, the chain starts to break just ever so slightly. And it's moments like this with the visual storytelling that I think Hokuzono really excels at. I've talked about this plenty of times about how his panels and shots in previous chapters, how it's like there's scenes from the movie. If you're ever watching a storyboard just play out in real time, this is kind of what it feels like. But it's all the choices that Hokuzono chooses to put into the panels, how the panels form, and more importantly, what those panels actually represent. And right now, it represents Iori's memory slowly but surely coming back to her with the chains breaking. And as all of this is happening, she begins to wonder if the two things are sort of connected. Was she really chosen by this eye in the sky? And as all of these revelations are coming into Iori, she looks out of her window and sees a man she's never seen before, but she instantly knows that she's in danger, striking down what seems to be a student in lightning speed. This panel reminded me heavily of Chainsaw Man. For some reason, I can't really quite put my finger on it, but it always reminded me of those panels where you see Denji just wiping out squads of people in the blink of an eye, and this panel really gave that same energy to me. However, hints of Iori being Samora's daughter truly do shine through here, and as she calls for everyone to get down, as she sees Kaguri bursting through the window, and he just calmly asks what year this class is. Kaguri is asking where Samora is, and Iori questions this in her mind, and I wonder if she is now starting to have an inkling and see that these two strangers that have appeared are now here for her. However, Eyelash Hishaku does happen to reveal some of her powers somewhat, taking a drop of blood from a cut student and putting the blood in her mouth. Disgusting, but this ability somehow tells her which one is related to Samora. Either that, or she just happens to remember the exact taste of Samora's blood, which, either way, strange as fuck. However, this is where Iori starts to really inherit the traits and exhibit the traits of Samora when it comes to being her daughter, as she leaps into action in favor of saving those who can't save themselves, realizing that the guy who was copying Chihiro is about to get himself killed trying to emulate what he saw on TV. He's trying to be a cool dude, and it leads me to an interesting thought. I wonder how many others within the world of Kagurabachi have been affected by the actions of Chihiro and inspired to make the world a better place. Obviously, we have this guy now in the classroom. Prior example was Mr. Inazuma, Shaw. We have Chihiro sort of indirectly and directly affecting younger generations or even people on the same level and sort of changing the world through his own actions, whether he knows it or not. but I thought that was kind of interesting. I would like to see maybe Hokuzono sort of circle around to that maybe in the future. Anyways, moving further in, we see Chihiro finally appearing, and I want to take a moment to appreciate the speed of the events and the sequence that happens here. Kaguri earlier killed a man so fast you barely see his hand move, and now we see Chihiro trying to catch him off guard with a slash from behind here. However, Kaguri was able to react to this very slash, stopping the blade with the handle of his own blade just before Chihiro's reaches his, which is insane. And while all of this is very, very impressive and all very well and good, I do want to point out that it seems that Chihiro doesn't actually draw the enchanted blade, he actually draws his short sword, but the panel on the hilt here, they are the same, but I'm pretty sure that this is not N10. Anyways, Many Samura here takes Iori away from the fight, and the chapter resumes to the perspective of Iori, with her talking to the gang, and the Masumi mention how the seal is starting to break down, and how the Hishaku must have picked up on this, but they can't sort of pinpoint her identity the same way that the Masumi can, because obviously the Masumi know who it is. They also mention how this has to be an external interference, and it even suggests how this could be the owl ability, and while that does seem likely, I personally believe my own theory that it might just be Iori seeing the owl and starting to piece things together and break it off her own willpower. However, this is where the parallels, as I mentioned earlier, between Iori and Chihiro come into fruition, as Iori says almost the exact same thing that to Mini Samura that Chihiro said to Shiba earlier on: if you know something, please tell me. Drawing a stark contrast between these two younglings who want to know more about their parents, who have both done really bad things in their lives, and those actions have had long-lasting consequences on their children. Samura taking away his daughter's memories has left her in this sort of feeling of distress, not knowing what's going on. Chihiro's dad creating the blades has obviously just started everything that is going on right now. These setup chapters with brief action sequences have slowly become some of my personal favourite chapters within the action and within the series of Kagurabachi, and it makes for a nice brief respite from the chaos and the action, and I'm always excited to see where and how Hokuzono pieces together this story. But anyways, that is everything from me. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and consider supporting the Patreon or becoming a member to the channel, as it truly helps me out and keep the lights on. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.